If you're trying to move abroad and you're looking for a job in France, there's this one hiring thing that nobody tells foreigners. And it's that it's not just about your CV or your experience. It's really about that companies are not only evaluating like your talent or your skills, they're evaluating risk. How do I know this? I know because I've moved to France twice. I'm Deidre, by the way, and I work in French HR. I've worked in HR in France for several years now, and I've also had like the unique opportunity of working in both the public sector in France and also private corporate France. And I want to help you to understand that once you know that companies are not only, they're not just only evaluating your talent, and it's like a risk calculation as well, then the whole foreign international hiring process suddenly will make a lot more sense to you. But before I continue and share how you can figure this out, I want to ask you something. What do you think hiring a foreigner is all about? Did you say skills, experience, like figuring out the language level, things like this? Like you're not wrong, because most people assume hiring is about skills. It's about the interview, like how well you perform in the interview, um, your experience, how well you speak the language, things like this. This is true and this is valid, but it's true for local hiring. International hiring works differently. If you think about it, when companies hire from abroad, it stops being about like just your skills or just your experience. There's an added layer, and it becomes a evaluation of risk to the company, time, and their use of resources like labor. Because look at it. What you know about hiring, like I said, the skills, the experience, team fit, etc. This is what you're used to in your own home country. So you're in Jamaica, you're in the US, you've looked for jobs before, right? And so you understand the hiring process, the recruitment process from your own country's perspective. So, in general, a company will look at competence. They're going to look at, like, okay, well, what's the employee, the candidate asking in terms of like salary range, or are they a good fit, a culture fit or team fit during the interview? Like, yeah, those things. And international companies are also looking for those things when they're doing international hires. But they also, when hiring internationally, companies must also and do also consider the visa procedures, timeline delays, admin workload, relocation logistics, compliance, taxes, all of that. That's a whole additional layer that companies must also consider when they're hiring a foreigner outside of France, right? And the real question becomes, is this candidate worth the extra process? It's That's kind of like the reality. The core reality of hiring abroad is hiring a foreigner is the candidate worth the extra process and risk through all of this? And that's what you need to prove, and that's what you need to include in your profile as a foreigner trying to find a job in France or anywhere really. That's one of the things. And I see it quite a lot. Let's look at it in practice. Like if you take two qualified candidates, Kelly and Lisa, Saved by the Bell for my millennials, yes. Kelly and Lisa. Kelly is abroad needing sponsorship. So Kelly is based in St. Lucia, or Kelly is based in, I don't know, wherever, right? Kelly needs sponsorship, qualified candidate, but she's abroad and she needs sponsorship. Lisa is already in France, whether Lisa is a foreigner or a resident on a visa or naturalized or a citizen or whatever. Lisa is already in France. For a company, it comes down to things like if the role is urgent, companies are going to choose the candidate who can start immediately. And that's going to be Lisa because it's urgent, right? And in cases that I've seen, smaller companies sometimes avoid sponsorship simply because like they lack the HR infrastructure or resource or labor or capacity or experience with relocation. On the flip side, smaller companies can also be more flexible and nimble about figuring out this process, but they're not going to do it if the role is urgent. Somebody based locally will always trump, let's not use the word, but companies who are people who are based locally will always have that advantage, definitely when the role is urgent. And I've also seen in France, particularly in my experience, is that we're more companies that are more traditionally French in their culture and their structure will shy away from hiring internationally because many times they don't know the process. So I'm not trying to like dissuade you. This doesn't mean that foreigners cannot get hired in France. Hello, Deidre. Foreigner currently hired in France. People relocate successfully all the time, every year. People move all the time. We've just hired a couple of foreigners because there are always updates and new pathways that reduce the burden of costs, that helps to simplify the process, etc. I would say though that it depends on the company's experience, etc., in terms of how willing they might be to navigate hiring a foreigner. For international hires, companies usually need a clear reason to go through the international hiring process. And when you understand this, it prevents you from assuming that silence means that you're not qualified, or it also prevents you from just applying willy-nilly to everywhere randomly. You're able to have more strategic moves when you understand the company's perspective of risk evaluation, their general knowledge, like resource of knowledge about the international hiring process and things like this. Like I've done contracts for people all over Australia, Tunisia, the US, South Korea, India, like tons of places, right? And they're all like not being based in France and they move to France. So, like I'm saying, people relocate all the time. But it's about understanding this process and the company having a clear reason to go through the international hiring recruitment. And so it's your job to figure out, like, to look at the profiles and the jobs that you're seeing and try to get a sense of, well, is this a good way for me to apply for this job? Like, is this an urgent role? Or just to have a sense about that in your process. And I talk about this a lot on my channel. I will talk about this even more. So if you want more like real explanations about how relocation and hiring actually work in France, then follow, subscribe, and binge my other videos because we'll talk about this for sure. Mm, hiring a foreigner and like this international hiring process or recruitment works best under, I would say, four conditions. And the four conditions are, and you don't need to like check all of these boxes, but meeting at least one of these conditions will drastically improve your chances. And it will work best under these four conditions when you're an international hire, When one, your role is hard to fit locally, to fill locally. When the company is already like they already hire internationals, they already have an international recruiting process or knowledge, database, etc. When your expertise, your skill set is specialized, and when your the fourth one is when the hiring timeline allows for administrative processes. If you watched any other of my videos, and you will see, we know, if you don't know yet, France is notorious about bureaucracy and how long admin process can last. I think many countries in Europe are like this as well. So the hiring timeline, when it allows for administrative processing, then that's a good condition. When your expertise is specialized, or when your role is hard to fill locally. So for example, which I said in one of my videos, especially, like if you have a skill, if one of your skills is on the skills shortage list in a country, top of the line, front of the line, you'll be hired because it's hard to fill locally. They're facing a shortage. And sometimes your skill will be specialized in this area. And then when the company already hires internationally, and it doesn't have to be like some big multinational company, we have tons of smaller startups, smaller companies that are more flexible and do hire internationally anyways, to make sure that the job fit and the skills are aligned well. But those are the four conditions I would say that makes the international hiring process, like, gives you the best outcome, the best possible outcome for finding a job in France. If you're over 35 or you're mid-career, then pay attention to this. In your case, as someone who's older or a mid-career professional, companies are usually hiring for very specific needs within your scenario, right? So think more specialized instead of generally skills. And this doesn't make relocation impossible, like I said before. It just means you have to be more strategic. And strategy will matter more than your volume of application, especially if you're over 35 or you're in your mid career. So you're not quite like high level executive senior manager, but you're also not entry level as well. And so you do have the advantage of having strong expertise and have starting to have strong expertise, but sometimes it's more about hiring for specific needs. And so you have to think about your specialized competencies and skills as opposed to just overall profile as an international recruit. So if you're planning to move to France, your goal isn't just to be qualified. This is what I would say. It's to understand how hiring decisions are made and how companies decide, like, calculate the risk and decide, is this international person worth the added administrative layer of hiring? And once you understand that, you start to position yourself strategically. And that will be your unfair advantage to successfully move abroad. And if you want more real explanations about how relocation works, how hiring works in France, then this channel is exactly for you. Subscribe so that you can plan your move with clarity. I have a whole playlist that you can binge. I'm Deidre. I help you to move abroad, move to France, and design the life that you love because you deserve it. Ciao.